Allow me, Mr. Mandela, to broaden the subject out a little bit and to introduce now another distinguished guest here, Senator Boren, who indeed will be called upon very shortly to vote upon the issue of sanctions. Senator Boren, I wonder if you'd be good enough to stand up and to give me your assessment of how much trouble do you think Mr. Mandela is going to have on this issue? How warmly will he be received in the U.S. Congress?
Ted, I think he's going to be very warmly received by people in both parties and by the administration as well. While there may be some differences of opinion on certain issues, like positions on Arafat and Gaddafi, I think the American people understand what has gone on in South Africa. We have seen families divided because they've been classified according to race. We know that people are denied the right to vote because of race. We know that people are detained and not even given a trial because of race. And the American people, regardless of party or position on other issues, are not about to relieve the pressure until that system is changed. Let me ask one question, Ted. I do think that many of us understand that there are pressures being exerted, that Mr. Mandela and President de Klerk, as they start toward negotiations, have extremists on both sides who really do not want to see them succeed, who do not want to see a peaceful transition. And we're concerned. I understand why we must not release the pressure, and I think there's a bipartisan decision not to do that. The President has reached out to us in Congress to say that he will consult with us on any future policy decisions that are made. But I wonder if there are some positive signals we could send, positive to both Mr. Mandela and to Mr. de Klerk as well, that would reach out to help South Africa, that would show our encouragement for these negotiations, and that perhaps could help the country as it does move to a non-racial democracy.
Can you give us a for instance, Senator, and then have Mr. Mandela
perhaps
respond?
Helping the schools. I know that black children in school, only 1 out of every 5 even has a textbook, because the past government has spent 8 times as much educating white children as black children. Are there positive things we can do, Mr. Mandela, at this point to send a signal both to you and to Mr. de Klerk that we encourage progress in these negotiations that are going on?
Well, Mr. Coppell, I think I would have an easier task if you ask me to pass a vote of thanks to Senator Boren. He has said all the things that are required to be said in regard to the problems of South Africa. He has a very positive attitude, and he is constructive. He is one of those men who are concerned not with fights only in his own country, in his own region. He is one of those men who have selected the world as a theater for their own efforts, for their own operations. And it is refreshing to be in the presence of such a man. As far as giving a signal to de Klerk is concerned, I have warned that it will be a serious mistake for the outside world to do anything with the stated objective of helping Mr. de Klerk, because it is that type of attitude which has enabled the right wing to increase its popularity as far as the whites are concerned. Please, whatever you do, don't do that. I have said the ANC is the best organization to help Mr. de Klerk. We are addressing that question. And I might disclose to you now that we have already, that is the ANC, we have already started speaking to the right wing. We have already spoken to a very influential member of the right wing. And those discussions were very positive. And they raised hope for greater developments in our relations with the right wing. Don't interfere in this question. I accept your bona fides in this regard, but you are playing with fire if you think in terms of rewarding Mr. de Klerk, because you will undermine his position considerably. We are, however, having discussions with Mr. de Klerk, and I am optimistic that we are going to make progress. I think he is as determined as we are to see to it that South Africa becomes a non-racial society, free of all forms of racialism. I am convinced about this. The only respect in which you can give a signal to both the National Party, to both the government and the ANC, is to consult both these organizations as to what you could do to facilitate the process of peaceful negotiations. It is not a matter that can be discussed in a meeting of this nature. This is an extremely sensitive matter, which if the time is right, and the element of confidentiality is retained, there can be an exchange of opinion. But to think in terms of rewarding one side, one party, and that is de Klerk, is a serious mistake.
You raise an interesting question. We're going to take a break, Mr. Mandela, but I hope that when we come back, let me pose the question to you right now. You can think about it for a second. You are speaking of not rewarding the two sides, and yet, of course, when it comes to rewarding the ANC, one of the things that you are doing over here is trying to raise money for the ANC, which could be perceived by some as rewarding one side in this debate. I would like just to take a pause now, and then when we come back, I'll ask you to respond.
Thank you.
Back in just a moment. And we are back once again at the City College of New York with Nelson Mandela. Just before the break, Mr. Mandela, I raised with you the issue of the money that you are raising while you were here for the ANC. Can that not be perceived as rewarding one of the sides in the struggle? And you were making the point that we should sort of stay out of this rewarding business.
Well, I don't think that that means the same thing. What the certain sections of the international community are saying is that Mr. de Klerk should be rewarded because he has done something to deserve that. And the first difficulty I have about that is that Mr. de Klerk has done nothing. We have done something. What are you rewarding him for? That's the first question.
Well, let me try and give the answer and have you respond. Your release, the release of other political prisoners, the recognition of the ANC, of the South African Communist Party, now the lifting of the state of emergency in all provinces but Natal, those are actions which the ANC and your supporters have been asking for many years, and some people would say, as each of these demands is met, the ANC is moving the goalposts on the field.
Now, Mr. Coppel, you are entirely misinformed. In the first place, the ANC ought never to have been banned. Secondly, my comrades and I ought never have been sent to prison. The state of emergency ought never to have been imposed. You are crediting Mr. de Klerk for rectifying his own mistakes, his own injustices. You must remember that in enforcing apartheid, many of our people have been killed. And many of our people have been executed for resisting a policy which the government now admits is an evil system. What are you rewarding him for as against that background? That is the question.
Let me turn the question around if I may.
Just a moment, Mr. Coppel. No. We have come here to say we are fighting against injustice. Help us as the masters of the people of South Africa who are living under repressive laws, a repressive system. Help us to destroy repression. There's no question of reward. We are not saying to the outside world, help us, reward us for having negotiated, initiated the peace talks. We are saying that reward should go to the people of South Africa as a whole, not to any particular organization.
Could it not then be argued, Mr. Mandela, that you will use the same arguments no matter what, because clearly you would argue, and I think with some justice, that until South Africans have one man, one vote, until the system of apartheid in all of its aspects is removed, those are all injustices by your definition, correct? Are you then arguing that sanctions against South Africa should not be lifted until every one of those injustices is removed?
The people of South Africa, the frontline states, the Organization of African Unity, the non-aligned movement, the General Assembly of the United Nations are all agreed that until fundamental and irreversible changes take place in the policy of the country, sanctions must be maintained. I am not here putting forward the views of an individual or of an individual organization. I am putting to you what is being said by the entire world. They insist that sanctions should be maintained until fundamental and irreversible changes take place in the policy of the country.
Mr. Mandela, we've just about used up all of your available time, but we will have time for just one more question when we come back in a moment. Mr. Mandela, I know that you are out of time. We are at least out of our time with you, but I wanted us to end on a point of wisdom. And when in doubt, always go to a youngster. Let's go for the last question to the young man at the microphone over there.
My name is Bernard L. Charles III, and I'm 8 years old. And I'm very glad that you're free, Mr. Mandela. And if there's anything any of us can do, just send us a postcard with anything that you want us to do, and we'll do it. Even raise money.
You want to come up here and ask some more questions?
Yes, fine. Yes.
All right, while the young man comes down here.
That's very good. That's very good.
While the young man comes down here so that he can shake hands with Mr. Mandela, I would like to extend my thanks to Mr. Mandela, to all of our audience, and to our distinguished guests who've been with us here this evening. Come on up.
Somebody must give me a paper. I want to give you an autograph. Has somebody got a piece of paper there, please?
Oh, absolutely. We got everything you need right here.
I see, good.
There
Good.
you go.
Thank you. I've got one. I've got one. What is your name? How do you spell?
Bernard L. Charles.
To Bernardo. Bernardo.
Just
What's your
Bernard.
first name?
Bernard.
B-E-R-N-A-R-D. Bernard.
I see, Bernard. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Bernard, thank you very much. Thank you.
This has been ABC News Nightline, a town meeting with Nelson Mandela.